Hello everybody, this is the final video. Please forgive me. Oh my gosh, I probably wouldn't have grace for as long as these videos, Lord God, have been with my video editing skills, and I'm learning. Like I said, this is all new for me, but this is the last video, I promise. And so I'm gonna make this quick. This is the most important part of this whole thing, and being a part of this whole sideshow, circus, and cult. But once again, my name is Rashida, and I was a former member of Kingdom Embassy under the leadership of Passion, Java, and Lily, and Java, Ruth, Java, and Innocent Java. That's now Restoration Nation and Freedom House. And like I said before, Freedom House is not free, nor is restoration in the nation. So I think I left off with just the last part of me meeting with Apostle Innocent in his office about me quitting, because quitting was the best thing that I could do. And so from there, it was a day, 2 days. I had taken off 2 days after that whole demonic deliverance session where Mama Ruth had gone over to Africa for about a month or so, allegedly getting powers, and came back just slaying everybody here, there, and everywhere. And it was just like something was just wicked and off about the whole situation. Everybody closest to her, everybody got demons closest to you. I'm talking about growling, rolling on the floor, just all manner of craziness. And these are the people who are in leadership, in high positions, in the church, and close up under her. And I'm like, you didn't get them delivered before you started having them have all of this access, living in your home with your kid and your husband, and all of this. It was just foolishness. And from there, I went away for 2 days, because I was like, this is craziness. I needed to reflect on it. And so Saturday night, when I had gotten back home, I had already bought EJ's book, Occultism in the Church. But the crazy thing is, I was scared to read it. I was scared to read it because I was feeling like, oh, I'm being disloyal, even though I'm having all of these internal emotions, and God's already speaking to me, waking me up times 5,000. There was still this loyalty that I had, where I believe what he was saying, because all of the hell that I had gone through being in this place. I'm like, something is wrong with this place. And it has nothing to do with bitterness. I'm not bitter with anybody. I'm not mad. I took this time to heal, to seek God, and to take responsibility for my part, and even allowing anything like this. And so it's a sad situation for so many people. I thank God for the learning opportunity that this situation has brought into my life. But truth sometimes is ugly, and these people are very ugly. And there's no other way to make something ugly pretty if it's ugly. So this is the ugly, organic, raw truth. And so that night, about probably 3:15, 3:20, like, I was tormented by this dream. It was like nonstop. And so I had this dream, a prophetic dream that God gave me about the situation. And the dream was, I was supposed to be befriending somebody at the church in real life, but God was like, no. And so that night, when I had the dream, the woman's niece that I was supposed to be befriending was trying to, we were going to hang out. And she took me to this big house, this nice house. It was like a really, really nice house. It was a big house, and you could tell it was very elegant. You could tell, you know, it was a money house. And when I got there in the house, she took me, you know, the way she was taking me, I didn't know, you know, where I was. And so when she got me inside of the house, she said, you know, as she's befriending me, and I'm, you know, kind of checking everything out. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. And she was started telling me, trying to prime me, get me ready for the fact that she was a part of a big family. So she was prepping me with, you know, hey, yeah, you know, thank you, because I was admiring the house. And she was like, I'm a part of a pretty big family. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, you're a part of a really big family. I didn't, you know, there was nothing I really needed to say too much. And she was just trying to kind of feel me out. And so she was saying, you know, I'm a pretty, you know, a part of a, you know, pretty, you know, pretty notable family. So she said it again. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, not a problem. And while she's getting ready, I could see that she's looking at me from her peripheral. And she said, you know, my family, you know, we're pretty, you know, we're a big deal, you know, in the city. And, you know, they're, they're, you know, kingpins. And she wanted to see my reaction. But at that point, I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm in a strange town. I'm in a strange place. I don't know, like, where I am. And so I acted as if I wasn't even bothered. I was like, okay, you know. So I'm looking. I started walking around the living room and looking, you know, at everything. And so there was this little baby. I was trying to distract myself, but at the same time, I'm trying to think to myself, I don't know where I am. How am I going to get out of this? I got to play it off based on what she's, you know, what she said. And she was trying to feel me out to see kind of where I was, you know, with the situation. And so there's a baby in the center of the floor. And so I'm trying to, you know, distract myself in the situation. And I was like, oh, I started cooing at the baby, you know, in the center of the floor. And when I was in the center of the floor, I was looking at the baby and I was like, oh, the baby looks so innocent. The voice was like innocent. And before I knew it, the face of the baby morphed into like this monster or snake. And the baby stuck its tongue out, and stuck its tongue down my throat, you know, and kind of pretty much kind of choking me. And then I was like, oh, you know, you know, and it was like, okay, now I own you, you know, we've been intimate. And I was like, what? You know, what is going on? So at this point, I'm like feeling violated and assaulted. I felt like, you know, I just got assaulted, you know, and someone kind of tried to force themselves on me. And I was like, you know, what is this? And so still, because try to get my composure, didn't know where I was or how I was going to get out. I just kind of got myself together in the situation and tried to play it off like, oh, okay, it's okay. And at this point, it was like, it was a man. So I was like trying to act like, oh, it's okay. Like, you know, cool. I'm okay with being with you. Like, it's fine. And, but I wasn't fine at all. And so the first minute I could find like the side door, I darted out the door and I ran for my life. And the way I woke up in this dream, like I was panting, like I was fighting for my life. I was running for my life. Like this was serious. It was bad. And so I found myself in this dark kind of like town. Was like gang, drug lord kind of town. And I found myself, it was kind of like up north somewhere, like, you know, DC, Baltimore, or something like that. And because there were these brownstones, so I grew up in that area in Baltimore until I was around 4, because my mom is from there. And so I went to pre-K. That was the last time we were there, my mom's family and everything. And I just remember like the brownstones and everything, walking up the brownstones and everything. And so, you know, I've just, Texas, the South has never seen projects and things like how they have projects. Like, it's like major, 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 kind of like good times kind of projects. Um, and after I run out of the side of the house, I run down the sidewalk, and I find myself in this city, and there's a car full of like drug lords, gang members, a bunch of men, and it was a lady in the car, and they had cut this, one of the gang members had cut, who was in this car, cut this man's head off because they were doing a deal or something. I don't know what happened, but they cut this man's head off, and they threw the head out of the window, and the blood was everywhere. And I'm trying to, while the head is rolling, I'm trying to make sure that I dodge the head by the time it hits the, you know, the side of the brownstone. And so in this dream, I ended up dodging the head, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like running. So I run into this house. Um, and so I started to look out the window of this house and to wait for my mom's medicine to come. And somebody stole the medicine off the porch. And I was like, hey, I can't wait, you know, for this medicine. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is not a good place. You know, this is horrible. And I went and I ran through another room, and I saw two of my old friends from my old church years ago, where they had, I don't want to say similar foolishness. Their situation was light work compared to this demonic activity, but a lot of manipulation and a lot of just control, and you know, just issues dealing with money, and you know, trying to exploit people. um so very much trying to pad their families' pockets down by leaving, you know, but raping the people, graping the people, leaving them desolate in so many situations. It's so I saw those two friends there, and when I saw those two friends, I was like, hey y'all, we got to get out of here, you know. And they were in bed together. And so with them being in bed together, I was like, that was weird. I was like, why are y'all in bed together? And so I was like, this don't make any sense. And I was like, nevertheless, I was like, hey, we got to get out of here. And the friend said that, one of the friends said, hey, I'm dating somebody from here. I'm not scared. Like, he got me. I'm fine. We're on vacation. I said, vacation? This ain't no place to be on no vacation. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is not a place that where we need to be. Like, this is not, it's not safe. You know, it's just, this is just not a good place to be. And so from there, I was like, okay, I was trying to plead with them, tell them, come on, let's go together. You know, we're better in numbers, but they were like refusing. They were like, hey, and then my other friend was with that friend. So they were like, no, we got this. We know what we're doing. And I was like, wow, okay, fine. So I darted out of the back door, and I found myself on the street. When I ran outside, I was talking to everybody on the street. I'm like, do you have $65? I need $65. You know, I got to get a bus ticket. I got to get out of here. Like, I'm not safe here, and I got to go. And I was asking people on the street, hey, do you have $65? Because I didn't have $65. And the girl told me, she says, I have $65, but I'm not going to give it to you because I don't want you to go. I want you to stay. I want you to stay here, you know, here with us. And I was like, I don't care what you want. You know, if you don't give me the $65, I'm going to get the $65. I said, but I'm getting out of here. And so I ended up, you know, leaving her. And I had sent, because I knew something was off, as God started warning me, you know, with little dreams here, little dreams there, and even telling me that my god baby, who used to go to the church with me, he told me to send her back to my godmoms, because God was getting ready to transition us from here. And I was like, okay, God, and it wasn't safe. And so I was like, okay, fine, not a problem. And my God baby, she wanted to stay. But I think maybe 2 months or 3 months ahead of time, I was like, enough is enough. Like, nuh-uh. I just was trying to pretty much see what the last part of what God was saying about being here or whatever he was doing. And so from there, I was sitting in the bushes. I'm back in this dream, sitting in the bushes. And so I see my God baby under this carport, and there was a black Cadillac, and she ends up stealing the Cadillac and getting away. And I was like, why would you do that? Like, what's going on? Like, you weren't even here. And because in the physical, she had left the church about 2-3 months before me. And there was all these goons, like those spirit beings, like in Space Jam. They were these big, huge, spirits, and they went after her, and they ended up catching her and bringing her back. And they didn't do anything to her, because I was like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen like to her? But they ended up not doing anything to her. And so I was like, okay, she's going to be safe. They're not doing anything to her. They letting her go. They just brought the car back. And from there, we had this hurricane that was in the city about Hurricane Beryl several years ago. Not even several years ago, maybe like a year or so ago. We had this hurricane, and it was so astronomical as far as it was a tropical storm. It wasn't even a hurricane. And it was ripping up trees. The trees were just toppling over and everything, and it was crazy. And it was a terrible storm. And so they had all these we lost power in so many different areas. There were these big electrical power trucks, not like the normal power trucks that were here. And so this big power truck came to the city. It was like dark, dreary, like dilapidated. It reminded me somewhere like DC, Baltimore. That's kind of what I remember. And I never liked that place growing up. And so the man got out of the car, and he had on this red outfit. And before you know it, I jumped into the car, and I tried to, I tried to get out of that dream, and I tried to get away. I was running over this and running over that. And the dream was so crazy. My adrenaline was racing like 5,000, and I was panting. When I woke up in that dream, I was breathing like a racehorse. And from that point, I got up, and the Lord told me, he said, do not go back to that church. He said, they know who you are. And if you go back to that church, what they're going to try to put on you, you won't recover from. And so I was like, oh, you don't have to worry about me, because I was so scared based on that dream. And then God began to give me the revelation, of the dream. And from that point, God told me, I said, well, God, where do you want me to fellowship? Where do you want me to go? And so he told me to go to this other church. And I went to this other church, and God had given me, out of all the people at the church, God had given me, called me out, gave me a word, told me what I was doing was right, that God was, taking me, in a different direction, and that he had a great call on my life, and there was a plan that was bigger than I even realized at the time that he was going to fulfill. And everything that I had gone through was a part of that, a part of the process, so that God could perfect and have the final work that he was doing on the inside of me. And at that point, they had thought I was coming to church, because at this point I was co-managing the hospitality committee that's in the back dealing with Gucci Guilties, everything, anybody that comes in and out of their food, anything that they may need. We were kind of managing that from the back. And from there, God began to pour revelation about the dream. And beyond a revelation, the next day, when I tell you everything that God had shared with me as far as this being a drug dealing kingpin, like a kingpin family. And God was like, when I tell you something, it doesn't matter if you have anybody to support. Anything that I tell you, you do what I tell you to do. And because it could be life or death for yourself as well as who I'm sending you to. And you have to be willing to go alone without any sense realm evidence, without all the details. And it was about 6 months, and EJ started coming out like with video after video. So I got the book. When I got home, I read that book like through and through and through and through. But still, there weren't any of the videos and all of that just yet about kind of what was everything that was happening before, I guess, EJ started to speak about everything that was actually happening. And so at this point, God told me, don't call. When I tell you, they were calling me like I've never talked to Gucci Guilty or that much in my life. He was calling like a serial stalker, calling me back to 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 back, trying to, I guess, see where I was or whether or not they were calling and checking on me. And so God told me, you only tell who I tell you to say something to. And so the people who were on my team, God told me, I want you to tell this person. I want you to tell this person. I want you to tell this person. So I began to tell, like Harriet Tubman, tell this person to try to get them to freedom. Woo, when I tell you that was one of the hardest things, that I've done. I got persecuted for even trying to tell them the truth, to try to get them to safety, because they were so loyal. A few of them left, the church, and eventually, believe me, because God had already started speaking to, a few of them as well. And I felt like if I was a part of a team, there was things that were genuine, even though these people weren't genuine. There were things about the people who I was working alongside that was genuine. And I felt like it was, I owed it to them based on what God had said to me to share with them. And to double down, God started, telling me, he said, this is a demonic, drug dealing family. Like, they are a network of criminals. This is a criminal operation that they are running on God's people. And when EJ started talking about, and I was like, how you start certain things, it seems like crazy. Drug dealing, kingpin family. I'm like, God, like, is this just an analogy? And when EJ was talking about, the drugs and this, that, or other, and I was like, I didn't understand how, people, you're on a worship team. And I'm not saying that people can't have issues or hide issues or whatever, but you it's plenty of them in the church. They using drugs, they having sex. And as God began to unfold things to me and then confirm it through EJ's testimony, Greg Locke, and things that they were going through, I was like, these people are wicked. They are wicked, and this is craziness. And I was like, okay, God, what to do next? He was like, you just do what I tell you to do. And as things started, to unfold, it was more, that were coming out about everything that he was showing me. And even when I saw the baby in the center of the room, he said, I know you thought that, Apostle Innocent was innocent, but you were dealing with a seducing spirit. You were dealing with a seducing spirit, and he's not innocent at all. the same things that they are experiencing, with Revelation Church and some of the women and things that are coming out. I think a lot of things we were just making it heavy, based on, Sheridan and Gigi, and because that's what they were experiencing. But there have been things, and people will eventually come out about their situation. Innocent, he's sleeping with people in the church too, sleeping with his son, it's sleeping with his daughters and things like that. Some of these people are homosexual, going both ways, bisexual. These are things that God was unveiling to me, just very lustful, in the spirit of perversion, in a lot of them. And he was showing me this and teaching me for, because he was training me, because I'm like, who needs the movie and a popcorn? Like, you have a real live movie sitting here in front of your face. Unfortunately, the joke is on the people, but eventually, God is going to deal with that as well. And so just the other day, on February the 11th, God was saying he was trying to bring light. He's tried to bring light, but there's no amount of him that's there. And with him trying to come and to bring light, it's too dark in that place. And so he's not, he's done with trying to talk and trying to deal, with the wickedness, of these people. And the 65, and when I was asking for the $65, it was a number of transition. God was bringing something to an end, and doing, a new thing as far as wrapping up, what he was doing in me. And it was time to go out of that situation. But on the 11th, the other day, God told me to let them know that their vileness and their wickedness, he was like, the judgment and the prophecies of Isaiah 65 is against that house. And God said he will repay. He was like, you wouldn't listen. He wanted to hear and to heed what you had to say, but the idolatry and the wickedness, if you go and read Isaiah, because it's very long, I'm not going to go through all of that, but demons know how to read too. As well as, I asked the Lord, he told me to go down the street, because the church is around the corner from my house. And God told me to go back down the street, and he told me to look at the street sign, because I didn't think about the street sign. And he said, and I know some of y'all probably going to be extra sensitive about this. He said, just as Whitney died, so this movement will die as well. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know Whitney. So he told me to look at my phone. So the day he told me was actually, he said, look up Whitney Houston when she died. And I was like, okay. So I looked up Whitney Houston the day she died, and it was February the 11th. And I was like, my God, Lord, have mercy. And so I was like, one thing that I know about God, he might be slow, but he show when he, administers a judgment, and he says what he says, it is what it is. And God said that ministry will come to an end. And although they bought buildings and trying to expand, and like I said, allegedly, just like criminal operations, when they trying to, do tax evasions and tax frauds, what's one of the first things they do is they change their name. And God said there's no name you could change. There's nothing that you can do that is going to hide the judgment, that is against your house because of what you've done to my house and what you've done to my children. And what you've done, to my children. And as God was sharing more about the vileness and the wickedness that these people have done, and one of the things that was sad about this situation is they're also allegedly murderers. And I'll explain what God shared with me about what they're doing and these systems, and when they're getting these spirits um, to get certain powers, those spirits, they got to have blood. They got to have a sacrifice. And if they don't bring a sacrifice, then their families are going to be the ones that are sacrificed. I remember when I graduated from college, I went and I got a job working for BET in DC. And I was working on this I was working on this talk show. I was working on Rap City. I was working on with Big Tigger, and I would see all the stars, and I was doing a assistant producing at the time. And these people, I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer, and these people would use drugs to go to sleep. They would use drugs to get up, the parties. It was crazy. It was just absolutely wild. And God was beginning, as he was downloading more, because he gave me a part of the revelation, a year and a half ago. And then he began to pour more just in these last couple of days. And he said that during this time, the same thing, that the exposure, things that are happening in Hollywood, and the wickedness and sacrifices and all of those different things that they're doing, these people are doing the same things just in the church to unsuspecting people who, some are dull in hearing, some are disobedient, some are rebellious, some just don't know the word, and they're just being taken advantage of. God doesn't take kindly to you exploiting and using and abusing his people. And so I remember one night we were praying, and it was an all-night prayer, and we were praying. And that night, the person that I had on my mind that whole time was my sister-in-law. And that same night, my sister-in-law walked herself into a car and killed herself. Not saying that she didn't have problems before, but God said that when you're going up and you're putting your family members, on posters and pictures, and you're coming into agreement with these demons and these devils who have already made covenants and agreement with demons and devils in dark places, and these witches and sorcerers that they're going to for these powers, they're looking for blood. There is a sacrifice, because the devil knows he can't originate anything. He just has to copy and duplicate in order to come up with the fake powers that he does have. It needs blood, just like Jesus Christ died and was the sacrificial blood, and was the ultimate sacrifice. They already know, in order to temporarily get some of the things that they need to get to work, God said these people are killing people's family members. They're coming to them, allegedly coming to them about their sick family members. And those spirits behind the scenes are looking into the spirit realm, looking at family members, looking at people who are weak in the spirit and are just suddenly dying. I've had, one person tell me of their family member, all of a sudden die. I even know of another person who is now one of my church members, family members, just all of a sudden died. And unless you come out of covenant, unless you come out of agreement, unless you denounce being in agreement with them, you still give these demons and devils legal right to be able to go. And I thought that this was ludicrous and crazy, my own self, but I know for a fact when God tells me something, it's cash money. It's cash money. And what's happening is that they're trying to build their own kingdom, even to the point of their sons and daughters, if they got to kill off your family or your mom or your dad, you're coming to them about them being sick at one point, and all of a sudden they just start dying. God said that there's a spirit, that they've also unleashed to make, these people who think that they care about them orphans. Because then if you have no mother, if you don't have any father, then you will cling to them and their agenda even the more. And you feel like, this is my family now. This is the lengths that these people, are going to for power, for control, for money, and to build the agenda of darkness here in the United States, here in Texas, under this wicked and vile leadership. And God, this has come up before God as you being stinky, a stinky smell in the nostrils of God. And he said he will repay for your wickedness, for your vile behavior, for your usury, for your exploitation, for the perversion that you've put on the people, for the error that you've taught them, for the idolatry and the wickedness that you've done before God. And so, like I said, I've forgiven you. You y'all are fine with me, but it's one thing when God's hand is against you and he's fighting you. And this is him, you know, saying that he's tired, you know, and even as God began to give me the word, you know, of the Lord at the beginning of the year, I think it was like December the 6th, you know, people are going to start just dying, you know, in the pulpit for things in their wicked places that they shouldn't even be standing because of their disobedience, because of their wickedness, because of their sin toward God and God's people. And God is saying, I've had enough. Now, God's timing is not my timing, and it's not even my problem. I don't care, you know, but I know his hand is against you. And I think a lot of times because of pride and ego, you think you're getting away with anything. There's nothing that gets away from the hand and the face of God. And God has these charges against you for what you have done to his people and for where you are trying to take his people. And God is not willing. People don't understand that the church and God's agenda is bigger than any demonic agenda, any day of the week, year, or month. And his purposes, you know, will stand. And so if you are, you know, in this church, still, woe unto you. The Bible says, out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. How many more witnesses, you know, do you need? But God also gave me a revelation about Lot. And God saved Lot because of Abraham's righteousness. Because if you go into Genesis and you look at the story of Lot and you look at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, the angels had to rip Lot out of that place. Because if you go and you read, I think it's around 16, the Bible says that Lot lingered when the angels came and told him that he had to go. You know, Lot lingered and the angels had to rip him out of that place. And he even still kind of mocked God. I think there's maybe a couple of scriptures. He still had a little bit of mockery in his heart because there was something in him that still liked what he thought he was getting from Sodom or what he was actually participating in. And I send a warning to the people who are there. God is not playing. Like this gap, God ain't playing with his people. In this season, it is too critical. I am sounding the alarm. It is too critical for you to be disobedient and to be in dens with devils. Because when the consequences go out and when God deals with these wicked men, if you continue to stay in these places thinking that this is going to be a place of refuge, there's no refuge against God's wrath when he said, okay, I'm tired. I'm done with this situation. I'm tired of the little games, the little hustles, little criminal activity that y'all are playing, you know, in this situation. It's too many casualties. Too many people are dying at the hand of these people and the spirits that we're opening ourselves up to. I was opening myself up to. And people are dying at the hands of these people. And then the people are thinking that these people love them and got their best interest. These people don't care about you or nobody you holding up on a poster or calling for prayer or one-on-ones. They just trying to see who getting ready to be sacrificed based on who's weak, who they can exploit, whose money they get ready to take, for their own selfish gain, because you can't have that level of power or money or influence and it not cost you something. And it's not costing them prayer, sacrifice, fasting, and all of that they trying to do in the church to create y'all in church every day of the week, 10 hours a day, then turn it around. It's only to keep you distracted and tired and serving the agenda of that house. I was looking at a video by Prophet Passion Fruit, talking about praying and doing masturbation. What kind of wickedness? We serve a holy God that deserves reverence and honor and respect. And you would bring your vile, nasty behavior into a holy, consecrated time of fellowship? You wicked one, son of the devil, that you would do something like that. And this is who y'all are submitting to. And like they say, apples don't fall too far from trees. And just because they were mentioning unloving, y'all were thinking, oh, well, my papa, he's separated from him. They ain't separated from nobody. Java just Passion Fruit just released a video. He just changed the name. He ain't going nowhere. He's still running it. He's still top dog. He's still top demon. He's still the kingpin of the kingpin over the king corral and the clowns. He's still over this situation. Like I said, Freedom House ain't free. Restoration ain't no restoration in the nation. And I don't care. I don't have to know all the details. But all I know is EJ not lying. Prophetess Tiffany ain't lying. Marcus not lying. Abednego not lying. Sheridan not lying. Gigi not lying. Jack's not lying. Prophetess Jasmine, she ain't lying either. And I'm certainly not lying. I could think of other things to be doing aside from being on here telling you about people that don't even really matter to me anymore. It was an experience. I thank God for what he was preparing me for. But when I woke up in that dream and everything, little by little by little, that started coming out about every revelation that God said. And God's judgment is on this house. And he will deal, and he's going to repay for what you've done. And so, with that being said, I feel like I have said everything that I need to say in this situation. But I just would, my last plea is to the people, don't get consumed, with people who don't care about you. It's a lie. It's a lie. The agenda is not real. And I know, like I said, in these Jezebel narcissistic structures, some of y'all, they done bought cars for. The Bible says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and yet lose his soul? And I don't care the one or two things that they've done for you. You are a part of their agenda to do further wickedness. Just like God is building an army, the devil's building an army too. Don't be on the wrong side of the tracks, partnering. This is a very sensitive time. And I would tell you the prophecy, that God gave me, but I'm recording on my phone, so I can't tell you right now. But maybe I'll share that at a later date. But this is not the time. It's far too sensitive. Heed the word of the Lord. Come from among them. Find you a good Bible-based church with the simplicity of the word, that's teaching the word of God. These people ain't that deep, but they are very, very demonic. And this is a game and a gang of criminals. And so, with that being said, I'm just going to say it again. I won't be on here responding to any kind of, I don't care what you say. If I'm praying for you, I'm praying for your soul, that God will be gracious and merciful. Because some of y'all, he said he's already talked to several times, even in these demonic houses. And you're more loyal to Lucifer than you are to the Lord. And you've allowed your trauma to have you to trump the truth of God's word. And you've silenced your own self. And like Tiffany Montgomery said, you got prophetic insecurity and prophetic stupidity, you know. And as God has been gracious, you've ignored the lifelines and the warnings and the signs and everything that he's tried to send you. And I pray that, you know, you get out of those houses offered to demons and idols and darkness with your life. And like I said, I'm not going to be telling, you know, other people's story. Mine, you know, is enough, but the reality of what's already said, and I believe everything that's already been said has been enough. But the fear that I had in my heart after that dream and the wickedness that these people are doing, it scared me to the point where I just knew I wouldn't be going back, and I wouldn't even dart the door of anywhere or any place that they set their feet. And so this is me, because at first they teach you to fear them. I don't fear you. I fear God. I fear no man. And God told me it's time for me to release my voice in this atmosphere, in this territory. I don't fear you. I don't fear any of your demons, imps, anyone assigned to you or with you. This is God's territory. This is the territory also that he has given me and so many other believers. And it will not be overrun by demons and houses offered up to Satan and his wickedness. So, with all of that being said, I love you, believers, with the love of the Lord. Heed the warnings that God is saying this year. Obedience, 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 obedience is the best thing you can offer God, and making sure that you are bowing your knee only to Jesus Christ, the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. I love you. Bye-bye.